I'm going to get frustrated if Kyle Tucker is now not a New York Met because it makes too much sense. David Stearns, hear us. I know you're listening to Meet the Mets Fans podcast. You're probably sitting there waiting for this episode to drop. You got to sign Kyle Tucker, and you got to do it now. I don't want to hear no excuses. Steve Cohen has opened up his checkbook. He literally said, I don't care what it's got to do. Blow past that $350 million mark. Get it done, David Stearns, and we'll be on this next pod throwing a party.
Rising up from the stands.
Welcome back to the Meet the Mets Fans podcast. I'm your host, Stefan. I'm here with Justin. Justin, what's going on, man?
What's up, Met fans? How we doing tonight?
There's going to be a lot of rumors that we're going to be talking about here, Justin. A lot of things swirling around the Mets. Yesterday, I put out an episode talking about Kyle Tucker, giving it a lot of attention there and talking about what I think it takes to bring Kyle Tucker to Queens. And I pretty much said that Kyle Tucker needs a high average annual value offer that seems off the charts for a player of his caliber, a Juan Soto-like offer. And then literally today, it sounds like the Mets have made him a high average annual value offer.
I mean, listen, Kyle Tucker's going to get all the attention on this episode, but I got to give a little shout out to the new Mets Meet the Met Fan studio you got going on over here. I like that little background. Yeah, no, I saw this on the last pod. It's looking good, man. It's looking real good. Yeah, I got the gear coming on tonight as well, right? So if you're listening, if you're just listening, you're not viewing it on YouTube, right? We got some Meet the Met Fan gear going on. Nice little hat that Stefan bought me from the 7 Line. Little shout out for them. He's in the studio right now. I love it, man. We got something cool going on over here. We got some pretty
cool stuff. The studio brought to you by a guy named Jesse, biggest supporter of this podcast. Huge Yankee fan.
Listen. Yeah, maybe he'll be happy tomorrow. Let's see. They made a little trade just moments ago. But as you mentioned before, right, the big news, we got to get to it, okay? This is not breaking news. The Mets have not signed Kyle Tucker. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But there is some buzz. There is some excitement, all right? Clearly there's something going on here. What we have right now is there is apparently an offer on the table for $50 million on an average annual salary. The years are not really confirmed. People are speculating it's at least 3 years. So if that's bringing us 3 years, around $50 million, you're looking at about $150 million total. Now, Will Salmon of the Athletic reported earlier today that he heard that it was around 3 years, 120 to 140. I think there's been some confirmings, right? Some confirming reports that it could be upwards of $50 million. I don't think it's getting past that number now, Stefan. I know you mentioned like that's what it's going to take, something like that. There's no way that the Mets are going to pay Kyle Tucker more than Juan Soto, right? After they just gave him the largest deal in the history of all of sports just last year at $51 million a year.
I mean, I wouldn't say there's no way. I would have said there's no way that the Mets trade Brandon Nimmo. There's no way the Mets let Pete Alonso walk. I think the Mets operate right now with a completely different philosophy that we could say there's no way anything. Are they going to go give him a 15-year deal, a 12-year deal? I don't think so, right? I think that this money, the $50 million a year, is coming because it's 3 years or it's 4 years. At max, I think it's 5 years that they're going to be offering him, and I think it's going to come with these opt-outs that allow him to go back into free agency as a super young player and get a shot at getting himself that Juan Soto-like contract, coming off what he hopes is going to be a better year than the year he had last year.
Yeah, so Tucker's turning 29 on Saturday, right? His birthday, it sounds like a nice little birthday party coming up for him. So if we're looking at like what you were just talking about, if he's turning 29 on Saturday, so he's entering his 29th season. If he does get a 3-year contract, you're looking at age 29, 30, and then age 31. So he re-enter free agency playing his 32nd year, right? Year 32, okay? Entering his free agent year, which, we saw contracts coming on this year, right? Between Alex Bregman, Pete Alonso, Kyle Schwarber was even a couple of years older, where there was some big money that came on the books, right, for those individuals in their 32 or the age 32 year season. And so, it's possible, right, that Tucker looks at this and says, hey, this is a pretty good option for me. I obviously had a down year last year because of injuries. Great first half, really bad second half. I want to prove to baseball that there's some reports out that he's not committed. I want to prove to baseball that I'm one of the best. I'm the elite player that I think I am. Let me take this 3-year contract, right? Pay myself a huge annual salary for the next couple of years. And it's something that's feasible and definitely possible.
Yeah, I think the Mets have set up this team right now to have the ability to pay him this type of money. And it's Juan Soto level on an average annual value. It's not Juan Soto level of almost a near $1 billion contract, right? Because it's going to be for that short amount of time. And so I think the Mets can say, yeah, we're willing to overpay right now to make ourselves competitive. I don't know exactly what David Stearns is planning to do 3 years from now when there's no one on this roster. We'll see when we get there, I guess. But it's nice to see that there is a level of commitment to making the current team better. I've been on this podcast saying I'll eat crow if they actually end up signing somebody, but I think that David Stearns and the Mets are really happy with the roster that they have now. They're willing to go with it. And I almost sold myself on that idea. And I think, Justin, you've been talking about how you're feeling with all of these rumors coming out about Kyle Tucker. Like a day ago, you were like, I don't know, man, I'm super excited. I feel like I'm excited about this again, and I don't want to be let down. So what are your thoughts now that it sounds like there's real buzz? It sounds like these rumors are swirling way too much for there not to be something about to happen.
Yeah, I honestly went into this offseason saying Kyle Tucker, no chance. Right? Sid Wade came on the pod, that first ever episode. He said, what's your offseason plan? He said, Kyle Tucker. I laughed. And, at the beginning of this offseason, it really didn't make sense with this roster construction. You had Nimmo under a long-term contract. They were able to get rid of that contract. And so right now, as constituted, Kyle Tucker makes too much sense. That's what's getting me frustrated right now. And not frustrated, it's getting me excited, but it's also making me now nervous, is that this makes too much sense for the Mets to do. And there is now no reason why the Mets shouldn't pursue Kyle Tucker in this type of manner. And, if it is just a 3-year deal, and Tucker's looking for a little bit longer, if you're willing to pay this guy for 3 years at $50 million, I don't see how or where the line gets drawn where you say, yeah, but I'm not willing to give him 4 years, or I'm not willing to get him 5 years. And so if it is something like that would take Tucker to come to the Mets, where the Mets had to, again, get uncomfortable, which is like kind of the wording that has been used in this offseason, is will David Stearns get uncomfortable? And we haven't seen him do that just yet. Will he have to get uncomfortable with this Kyle Tucker? Now, $50 million, Stearns isn't getting uncomfortable. This is Steve Cohen maybe getting a little uncomfortable with that number. But the number of, in terms of the length of the contract, is what we're really referring to right now. I'm at a point right now where it's making too much sense to me, which is now making me, or would get me actually angry if the Mets don't get him, which I didn't feel this way a month ago.
Yeah, I think a month ago we were all looking at this and saying, like, this is not going to happen, right? And so, like, the roster is what it is. We're going to move on here. And David Stearns believes what he believes to get Met fans excited again. I think it's an interesting play here. It's going to hurt if this doesn't work out. And I'm not in the camp yet to say that I think it's going to work out. I think the fact that there's this buzz now out here about the Mets making this offer about $50 million, if I'm the LA Dodgers, I know what the number is now, right? I can easily call up and say, hey, the Mets offered you 50, we'll give you 55. Can we defer $10 million of it? Sure. Right? Like, whatever it takes to get this guy to sign a little bit more than the Mets, or even matching the offer. And then I think we go into this back and forth with the Dodgers that I don't know if we're going to be able to win that. And it's going to be a letdown.
And there's no way that the Mets leaked this offer, right? This is not coming from the New York Mets, this offer. This is coming from Kyle Tucker's camp. The Mets and David Stearns, and I was mentioning this before to you and Sid, we got a little group chat going, is that what makes me most nervous about what's going on right now is that the Mets don't leak stuff. And usually when things get leaked is usually when things don't happen for them. And that is where my hesitation right now, and where my excitement level is dissipating a little bit, is that I feel like Stearns, there's no way he would ever want this contract and these details leaked for his competitors to kind of know what they have to get to. Now, yeah, sure, agents can say this, right? They can go to the table, they can kind of negotiate and say, I have an offer. But this happened with Boston. Boston thought that they were going to call Alex Bregman's bluff. They offered him 165 for 5 years. Bregman's agent said, we have a higher contract. They said, we don't believe that. He went and he signed with the Cubs for 175, that extra $10 million. And so the fact that this contract is potentially getting leaked now, and this is now exposing what the Mets are potentially doing, I think this only hurts their chances of getting Kyle Tucker. I'm going to be totally honest with you.
Absolutely, and it's not just the Dodgers that are out there, right? Like there. I just saw right before we came on something from ESPN. Jesse Rogers is the reporter reporting that while the Mets have this $50 million low number of years, high average annual value offer to Kyle Tucker, and lots of people are confirming that that's the case. Mm-hmm. It sounds like the Toronto Blue Jays have also made an offer to Kyle Tucker that might be less money in the average annual value, but it is a lengthier contract, probably more in the wheelhouse of what Tucker originally wanted, probably something upwards of 8+ years is what I would speculate is out there from Toronto, and I think that that puts a little bit of pressure on Kyle Tucker and like everybody else to figure out what exactly it is that he wants, right? Does he want the commitment of a long-term contract that's probably going to be a lot less in terms of average annual value, or is it going to be something that you're like, let me get paid big money for the next 3 years, and then take my shot when I'm 31 years old, 32 years old?
Yeah, and it's obviously a risk, right? You're going into this season, you can guarantee yourself you're going to be a man that will never think about money again. Your family won't think about money. It's generational wealth that you're talking about here with these types of contracts. I think it's more than for some of these guys, right? They want to be paid as top dollar. Okay. They want to be compared to other players because they believe their skill level is at that point. It won't be the worst thing if Kyle Tucker does take this deal. I'm obviously really biased. We're doing a Mets podcast. I want him to sign with the Mets. When you look at the free agency class, not just next year, but the year after, in terms of offensive players, it's not robust, right? It's pretty thin, right? When you're looking at like the top players that are available. And so if you're saying to yourself, Kyle Tucker, you're not competing with Alonso, you're not competing with Schwarber, you're not competing with Bregman, Bichette, all of these guys and Bellinger, you're not competing with all of these guys now where teams that want to make a move or want to improve themselves offensively, they might be clamoring a little bit more now for Tucker, especially with a thinner class coming out in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and that's not just into next year, right? Like
Yeah.
that like if we're not looking at next year, we're looking 2-3 years from now. The
Sure.
the list of offensive players that are going to be free agents is not good for about 3 years. Leading
That's
into
right.
2030, I think is the next time that you have a solid group of offensive players coming out.
That's right. And so, again, is this a mistake? It's not a mistake for anyone to take $50 million a year guaranteed for the next X amount of years. Right? No one is going to look at this and be like, I can't believe he took this deal. Will I be shocked if he does take that 7-8 year deal that Toronto might be offering? Absolutely not. I think it puts a lot of pressure, right, on this type of contract. And there's got to be a potential also with the opt-outs. I don't think it's going to be a straight 3-year deal, even if the Mets do get Tucker. And I think that's going to also be a little frustrating, is that if we have to give up with this qualifying offer some draft compensation plus the international bonus money, and it's a 1-year deal, I would be a little frustrated with that. Obviously, I'd be excited for the 2026 season. But in my eyes, I think you got to at least get a guarantee of at least 2 years with this deal for me to say, don't even bring up that other nonsense, right? I don't care about draft picks. I don't care about international bonus and pool money. None of that stuff matters. We got this guy for the next 2 years, and we're looking to kind of win or win now.
Yeah, I gotta be honest with you, and like maybe David Stearns has a completely different approach, and it's more in line with what you're thinking. But I don't see why. I don't see why any of that is an issue, right? If you're willing to trade prospects to get great players, why are you not willing to trade draft picks? They're less sure things than prospects, right? When you have a prospect in your system, you can see how that prospect is developing, what they're trending towards. You've got scouts that are working with these guys that'll project how likely it is for that prospect to hit for you. If you're talking about draft picks, you're talking about guys that are still in college and high school. You don't even know who that's going to be. And so the idea that you're not willing to give up a draft pick so that you can get this guy right now on a 3-year deal with an opt-out if he leaves after 1 year, why? Why in the world would you do that, right? Skubal is a guy that we're saying we're willing to trade top prospects to go and get.
Right.
It's a 1-year deal. You're willing to trade top prospects to get Skubal on a 1-year deal. You're not willing to trade top prospects, quote unquote, to get Kyle Tucker. That's pretty much what you're doing. You're saying we're going to give the Cubs a top prospect, or not even a top prospect. We're going to give the Cubs a draft pick in order for the ability to sign Kyle Tucker to a 1-year deal. I don't see why it's a problem.
No, your logic is spot on. That's where my head goes as well. But clearly, Stearns cares about those things. He's made comments for the last couple of years talking about that qualifying offer and talking about how, is it worth it to get rid of those draft picks? People are unhappy with David Stearns, clearly. But you can't argue that David Stearns has not improved the overall Mets organization. When we look at from top to bottom, sure, maybe their major league team is not what we had hoped for last year. 2024, we made it to the NLCS. Prospects, our minor league system, is ranked one of the best in all of baseball. And that type of language and rhetoric was not true a few years ago. When Stearns took over, he went from the top down and has improved this organization. People might not be happy currently with him right now, but what he has done is he has set this organization up, hopefully, for success for the future. And so when you're talking about those draft picks, I hear you. I don't care about a 17-year-old. I don't care about an 18-year-old. I care about the 29-year-old Kyle Tucker. I'm with you on that. But Stearns obviously has a philosophy, cares about you have to keep replenishing, especially if you're going to be using some of those pieces, not just on the major league team in terms of like the Mets current roster, but also for trade acquisitions as well.
Yeah, and I think it matters who the player you're talking about is, right? When we're talking about Michael King and whether it's worthwhile to give up a draft pick for Michael King, okay, maybe I'm more in line with the thinking of like that draft pick could be really worthwhile, right? For what it's worth, draft pick compensation was a guy like David Wright, right? Like that's what that pick can turn out to be. I completely get that. At the end of the day, though, when it comes to a guy like Kyle Tucker, it's worth it. You don't need the prospect. You've got this guy that you can lock up on your team and make yourself really competitive. I also think that one of the positives of this huge deal, a $50 million average annual value on a 3-year contract, let's call it, is the likelihood of opting out of it is much smaller. Even if Kyle Tucker has a great year, where is he going to go to get a bigger contract than $50 million for the year after that? Right.
Well, yeah.
So the likelihood of opting out of the 3-year deal rather than just riding out the 3-year deal, I think that's great when you're throwing that much money at a guy. He's not going to opt out after that 1 year, even though that might be something that's written into the contract to give him that option.
Yeah, and again, David Stearns was pretty creative with the Juan Soto contract. I know that people are like, this was Steve Cohen, Steve Cohen, Steve Cohen. He got pretty creative with that Juan Soto contract in terms of like escalators, where we saw that he can opt out after 5 years. It bumps up now instead of 51 up to $55 million for the last 10 years. If he does opt out and the Mets opt into him, it's a club option. And so maybe the Mets do get creative. Maybe it's a short-term deal, but there's also some escalators or incentives for the Mets that might be able to hold on to this guy for a long-term commitment. We'll see. This is all speculation right now. What I do believe is on the table is around $50 million a year. I don't think that that's false. There is way too much reporting that's going on, and this isn't like reports going on by some no-name guys. Like John Heyman is retweeting this type of stuff, and these guys usually are at least like close to it if they were like, this is not true at all. So there's at least some smoke, right, with going on in terms of this dollar amount, at least being close. Maybe it's 47, maybe it's 45, something in that range. I think that it's at least a serious offer that the Mets are making for Kyle Tucker.
Yeah, for sure. Just one of the things that I want to read before we move on from Kyle Tucker and get into some of the other things we wanted to talk about. We got a TikTok comment from this guy. His name is Chet You Betcha. And what he wrote, and I commented back to him that I want to explain our thinking on why this would benefit the Mets. But his thought here that he put on TikTok in a comment to us was, Kyle Tucker doesn't put the Mets over the top when it comes to being competitive. The season's over. Just accept it. Paying a guy $50 million for 3 years just to act like you're trying to win is an idiotic way to try to win back the fan base. And so I replied back to Chet, appreciate the comment. Anybody who makes a comment over on our stuff on social media, on YouTube, whatever the case may be, we're going to respond to you. We're going to try to throw some of those comments up onto the podcast and address those things directly. And I feel what Chet is saying here, right? Like he's coming from that Met fan place of like, I don't want to be disappointed. I don't want to sell myself that this is actually going to happen. But two things. One, David Stearns trying to win back the fan base by this move is one of the things I want to talk about here. And then the idea that Kyle Tucker doesn't put the Mets over the top is the other thing I want to talk about here. One, I don't think David Stearns gives a crap what Met fans think, right? He's not trying to win back the fan base. And we'll talk a little bit about what David Stearns said today that I think kind of fits in line with like, he doesn't really care all that much what Met fans think. He hears it, but he doesn't really care when it comes to his decision making. He's going to do what he thinks is right. So I don't think this move is about making Met fans happy. I think if he makes a move, it's about what he believes is the right thing to do for this team.
But real quick, I think you touched upon it yesterday when we looked at MLB.com is ranking the top teams in all of baseball, and the Mets are ranked currently 8th. Now, Chicago's ranked 10th. They made a couple of acquisitions. Maybe the Mets are 8th or 9th. The Mets, they're predicting to be one of the best teams in all of baseball. Met fans don't feel that way right now. Mets fans are also not their fans, and I think that that's important to understand. Listen, you and I are fans as well, but David Stearns and his team is clearly looking at this. And there are a lot of people that are agreeing with him that the Mets have a really good team. They are not just this scrub team. They're not going to win 71 games. They're not going to be in last place in the NL East. They clearly have a really good team. And the fact that you're sitting here trying to win the fan base back, that's not what he's trying to do. He's trying to put a good product on the field. And he's trying to not just win for 2026. I believe he's trying to build a successful organization for the next 5+ years.
Yeah, I agree with you. The second part of Chet's comment here that I want to address is whether or not Kyle Tucker being added to this roster puts the Mets over the top to being competitive. Right now, the Mets have replaced Brandon Nimmo with Polanco, right? When we look at the offensive number of these two guys, they're equivalent. right? So the loss of Brendan Nimmo when it comes to the offensive production, not really a loss. You've already replaced that. The Mets have replaced Jeff McNeil with Marcus Semien. And I think if we're looking at those two players side by side, Marcus Semien is a much better player than Jeff McNeil. What we're looking at here is the detriment that losing Pete Alonso has cost this team offensively and whether or not Kyle Tucker can replace that. If you look at their wars, Kyle Tucker has a higher war. I know that's more than just offense, it's defense as well. Kyle Tucker is a different player than Pete Alonso. He's not going to hit 40 home runs. Kyle Tucker is a different type of player. His offensive production is going to be there. It's not going to look the same, but this entire roster doesn't look the same. It's a different brand of baseball, as I've been saying for a few podcasts now. I think if you add Kyle Tucker to this team and he's the player that he's been his entire career, the Mets are going to produce offensively at a much higher clip than they've produced in the past. And it's going to be a team that we're not scratching our heads every single day thinking about, like, how in the world can this team put up 10 runs yesterday and get almost no hit today? Because these guys are going to put the bat on the ball and they're going to move guys over, and it's a different way of looking at winning games. Kyle Tucker 100% makes the Mets a competitive team. I think the Mets are an okay team. I think they're a third place team right now, exactly as it is. But you add Kyle Tucker to this offense, and this offense is one of the best offenses in the league.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. I think I'm going to say, I know that maybe this is really unpopular. Kyle Tucker's a better player than Pete Alonso. Please do not sit here and tell me that Pete Alonso is a better player. He might be more beloved by Met fans, but he's not a better player than Pete Alonso. That's not factual. Pete Alonso plays every single game. I'll give him that. He is an Iron Man. He plays 162, 161 every single year. That is facts. I can't dismiss that. I can't refute that. Those are the facts on paper. But also the facts on paper is that Kyle Tucker is a more complete player than Pete Alonso. And so when you're looking at this and you're telling me that I'm able to, I don't want to say replace, but I'm able to substitute Kyle Tucker in for Pete Alonso, the New York Mets are a better team in 2026. You've been preaching about this, right, all off season in terms of the pitching staff. And I think David Stearns, we're going to get to his comments. He addresses and talks about that, how excited he is for these young pitchers. And you are right. Did they improve their pitching staff? They didn't get anyone externally. But these guys that are coming up from the minor leagues are going to now be here for the entire year. And so de facto, have you improved your pitching staff? You have, by putting in or the prediction of Nolan McLean, who is ranked as the top pitching prospect in all of baseball, that is now going to be headlining the starting pitching for the Mets. You have improved it by just having this guy potentially for an entire year, barring injury.
Yeah, and I know as Met fans, we want to say with Nolan McLean, you can't put that kind of pressure on a rookie. You can't count on a rookie. I agree. Like, that's not fair to him. Unfortunately, life is not fair, right? It's good pressure to have. If a team is looking at you and saying, hey, we believe in you, we trust you, we're going to have you headline this staff, the United States of America trusts this guy. He's playing for us in the World Baseball Classic for Team USA as a rookie.
Let's go.
Right? As a rookie, this guy is representing Team USA. That's something to be said about how everyone, not just the Mets, believes in this guy's talent.
Google, Skeens, my man, right there with him.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
No, I'm with you, McLean. Now, he could be a stud. Let's see. I'm excited for him, obviously. Yeah, Chet, you betcha. Keep listening. We appreciate that. But that's a ridiculous comment that you made. Right? If that's what you're going to bring, if that's the type of energy you're going to be bringing over here, that energy is nonsense. I said today, we have kids that are potentially listening to this podcast. We don't curse on this podcast. I read that comment. I started cursing. I was like, wait, I gotta relax over here, right? So you can't be bringing that type of energy over here. Kyle Tucker comes on the Mets. They're a better team. End of story, period, stop. That's it.
I think it's hard for Met fans to move past. There's going to be a whole bunch of Met fans in Chet's camp that's saying, you can't win me over here because you destroyed what I love, right? You've gotten rid of players that I care about, that I'm passionate about. And even a guy like Evan Roberts, super huge Met fan, said, I want Kyle Tucker on this team. He makes this team better. It doesn't make me get over the fact that Pete Alonso is not on this team. Right. And so I think that's where a lot of this is coming from. You're not winning me back by going to get this guy, but I do think it makes the team better.
Yeah, let's get into these comments, right? So people, obviously, this is all directed towards David Stearns. So David Stearns finally has, I don't want to say he met the media, but he spoke to the media for the first time since early December at the winter meetings with the departure of Edwin Diaz and then the departure of Pete Alonso and whatever you want to call it, the midweek massacre, whatever the name is being highlighted here, okay, for the Mets losing a bunch of guys during those winter meetings. But he was at a luncheon this afternoon with a bunch of beat writers for the Mets. And he finally spoke. And so we have some of the comments that we would like to share with you guys in terms of things that he addresses. Finally, he hasn't spoke for a month and a half. The Mets have made some acquisitions in terms of Polanco. They've gotten Luke Weaver. We Devin Williams was a little bit earlier after these comments. And, so I think our best way, Stefan, will just kind of go through some of these quotes and we can kind of respond to it. So let's start
100%.
with this first one, which I think kind of resonates with a lot of Met fans. It says, this is a quote from Stearns: "I certainly understand there's been points this offseason that have been frustrating for our fan base. We're not blind to that at all. I'm certainly not blind to that. I hear it. I recognize it from my friends and family at times. I'm also very convinced that what we are doing is the right thing for our franchise going forward to accomplish our goals."
Yeah. I think this speaks to exactly what I was talking about before. He hears it. He understands that what has happened so far doesn't make us as fans happy. He doesn't care, right? He doesn't care that it makes us unhappy. He cares that it's what he believes is the right way forward to make this team a competitive team. And I think he knows that he's going to win back the fan base when they are a competitive team. We might enter into the first day of the season, opening day, where Met fans are still pissed with David Stearns and what he's done. But if the team on the field produces, Met fans will come right back because that's what we do. We love this team. We're going to come right back to them, especially if they're playing well, right? And if you're a diehard fan like we are, obviously doing a podcast about the Mets, we're going to be paying attention no matter what, right? We're going to be there. We're going to be watching this team, whether they're good or bad. But all the people who right now are like, there's no way we're going to be good. If we are, David Stearns will be forgiven.
Yeah. I heard Steve Gallups, he went on, he did a little, response or a little breakdown of Stearns' comments, and Steve Gallups of SNY, and he's talked about how David Stearns grew up a Met fan. His families are Met fans. He's a Met fan. He loves this team. He loves this organization. I think that is true. I know that, you heard those nonsense comments about Cohen. Was he really a Met fan growing up? He's more like a New York fan. It's really his wife. These guys are Met fans. Steve Cohen's spending $300 million plus every single year to try to put a good product out. And Stearns is not trying to sabotage this organization. He's trying to do what he believes to be the best for this team. And, it's maybe not the way that a lot of fans would have operated this offseason, but I got to give him credit. I got to give him credit for it because it's at least ballsy. What this guy did was that he dissected this entire team because we haven't been good enough. We have not won a championship. That is our goal, Met fans. We want to win championships. And the fact that we haven't even come real close, we haven't made it to a World Series since 2015, David Stearns is right. We needed to change something up. Does it hurt? You rip the Band-Aid off? It does. But maybe overall, giving a little breathing room to that wound might be a better thing for this organization and for this team.
Yeah. We'll go to the next one now. Next comment by Stearns is, we have elite talent at the top of our major league roster. We got a very good farm system. We've got a very good present day major league team. As we sit here today, that's going to get better before we get to opening day.
I like the end part of that statement there, David Stearns. All right.
Before we get to the end, though, I do want to clarify the beginning. The beginning is he believes in the team that he has right now.
Yeah, you got Soto and Lindor. You have two of the top 15 players in all of baseball. Soto is arguably number 3 in all of baseball, right? Like, you have top elite level talent on this roster. When you look at all projections, you look at WAR, you look at all of these statistics, Lindor and Soto are at the top of all of those lists. We have a good farm system. This is what we were kind of referring to before. I know that young players are scary. I am nervous for young players. We don't know. You hear these names, they're names on a piece of paper. We've never really seen these guys. I don't know how many people are sitting here on this podcast watching minor league baseball, right? But at the end of the day, you have to try to believe that these scouts, the organization, what they are seeing, how these guys are developing it in a positive way, especially when all of baseball is acknowledging that the Mets now have one of the best farm systems in all of baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. Stearns goes on to say, I wouldn't take anything off the table. I think we are and will continue to be involved in talks in all ranges of free agency and the trade market. And, obviously the buzz as he's having this meeting, as he's having this luncheon with a bunch of media members, swirling around the Mets are all these rumors about Kyle Tucker and the $50 million offer that's on the table for him right now. So
he must be so pissed, right? He's probably sitting there. He's like, mother, who leaked that? You know, like if it's no one on his team, there's no way they're not going to work for Stearns if someone leaked that contract offer. That it's coming. We said it before. It's coming from the Tucker camp. They are trying to create a little buzz. They're trying to get the Dodgers to maybe up their offer. They're trying to get Toronto to sweat it out a little bit. But yeah, listen, I believe that the Mets are going to improve their roster. They're going to get an outfielder. I am not saying they're going to get Kyle Tucker. Please do not hear what I am not saying. But they're going to have to improve their roster in the outfield in some capacity. Might be Starling Marte, right? But hey, I said it here. It's technically an outfielder that they got. But they have to, right? We don't have any outfielders on this team. We have Tyrone Taylor and we
He's
have
not
Juan
an
Soto.
outfielder, not Tyrone Taylor. Starling Marte is not an outfielder. He's
I'm like,
Juan
what do you
Soto's
mean
best
Tyrone
friend.
Taylor's not an
There's two
outfielder?
different things. That he's Juan Soto's best friend. That's why he should be signed to this team. Okay, make him like the first base coach or something.
Dude,
He can tell Juan Soto when
they were like a
Juan
Bad
Soto when to
Bunny
steal
concert
second.
together, right? Him and Juan. I love that. All right, go ahead. Bring him on. Maybe like an advisor. Just like you're hired as a best friend for Juan Soto. Come over here, right? Stroke his ego a little bit more, right? And help him out if he's having a bad time.
Yeah, we'll give him $5 million to do that.
Yeah. Hey, you can't opt out of this deal for that extra $4 million. We got to pay Starling Marte, all right, buddy? Sorry about that. All right, here we go. Another comment says, we are committed universally from ownership on down to ensure that the next 5 years of the Mets are better and that we win more games and meet the lofty expectations that we have for ourselves.
Yeah, Stearns essentially is saying we have not been good enough, right? And he knows that, and he feels that, and he is looking at this team and saying, I have to make sure that this team is better. It's going to be uncomfortable, and we're always talking about whether or not David Stearns is willing to be uncomfortable. I think he's clearly willing to be uncomfortable. What he's done is uncomfortable, right? He's alienated pretty much every New York Mets fan in the process of rebuilding this team. And he's trying to do it in a way where the team that's going to be on the field is still going to be competitive. You know, I was the guy sitting here saying I don't think he's going to add. We'll see what ends up happening. I'm also the guy saying I think the roster is good enough, right? Good enough to be competitive, good enough to potentially be a playoff team. And he's saying that what we've done so far in his tenure as the president of baseball ops for the Mets is not good enough. The next 5 years, he's promising that it's going to be better. And unfortunately, we're not in control here. We have no choice but to roll with that, right? And to believe that he's going to be able to do that, and to trust that Stearns is going to lose his job if he doesn't follow through on being able to put a competitive team on the field every single year for the next 5 years and beyond.
Yeah. I mean, listen, there are lofty expectations. When you have a payroll upwards of $300 million every single year for the last X amount of years, Steve Cohen is putting in all the resources that are necessary. You sign Juan Soto to the richest contract in the history of all of sports. You do have lofty expectations. We obviously fell short in 2025. We all know that. We all have acknowledged that. 2024 was a ride. And so right now we're one good, one bad with Stearns. We'll see what happens. I am optimistic. I am now to a point where I'm going to get frustrated if Kyle Tucker is now not a New York Met because it makes too much sense. David Stearns, hear us. I know you're listening to Meet the Mets Fans podcast. You're probably sitting there waiting for this episode to drop. You got to sign Kyle Tucker and you got to do it now. I don't want to hear no excuses. Steve Cohen has opened up his checkbook. He literally said, I don't care what it's got to do. Blow past that $350 million mark. Get it done, David Stearns, and we'll be on this next pod throwing a party.
And that party might be coming soon. Before we log off, Met fans, and close out this episode, I'm logged on to X right now. I'm taking a look just to make sure.
Do it. Tell me.
No, I don't have anything to tell you. I'm looking. I'm perusing right now. Give me a second here.
So you're telling me they haven't signed Kyle Tucker?
I'm telling you, it's not. There's nothing yet, but the watch party should happen, right? Like there's something that's going to happen. It's going to happen in the next couple of days, and the Meet the Mets Fans podcast will be here with you guys, ready to get fan reactions. So Met fans, when that news drops that Kyle Tucker has signed with the Mets or not with the Mets, we'll be here to hear from you guys and to talk about it.
All right, let's go Mets. All right, come on, bring us home. Come on, Stearns, do the right thing, buddy.
Let's
Don't be
go
telling
Mets.
me I want a 3-year deal. I'll give him the 5.
Give him whatever it takes, bro.
Yeah, seriously.
Meet the Mets fans, voices rising up from the stands. Hear their cheers, hear their groans, feel their highs, feel their moans. Stories untold now on the mic. Mets fans unite.